They laughed when we started. They watched when we struggled. They plotted when we got close. But we didn't come this far to stop at the finish line. If God started it, we will finish it. Again, God was with us through the pain. They came with words of accusation, they came with intimidation, but we heard a greater voice. Stand your ground and make your choice. They said, come down, come and talk, but we know the reason why we walk. This is greater than a wall. It's the glory of the God above us all. When the pressure gets stronger, we hold on longer. When the enemy draws near, we will to fear. No panic, no retreat. God has brought us to this street. We're building at the finish line. Hey, by the grace of God, we're gonna be alright. Though the enemy says come down, we keep our hands upon the ground. We're building at the finish line. Hey, what he started, he will bring to life. No fear can steal our testimony. God will finish what he started in me. Oh, he will finish. Like an angel, making life look holy and faithful. Artificial urgency, trying to steal our clarity. Run, run, you don't have time. But God's peace says, you are mine. We will not move because we're scared. We will move because God is there. False friends sitting at the table, praising Tobiah, spreading fables. But betrayal cannot break a heart that's anchored in his grace. When the pressure gets stronger, we hold.
So why is the most dangerous part of any massive life project the exact moment you hit 99% completion?
Right. It's such a counterintuitive idea.
It really is. I mean, think about it. We usually assume the beginning is the hardest part, you know, staring at a blank page or taking that very first step.
Oh, absolutely. Getting off the starting block.
Yeah. But there is a very specific, almost invisible psychological warfare that, well, it only activates when you were standing just inches from the finish line.
And that is exactly the core tension we are exploring today. We're looking at why opposition, whether it's external circumstances or even just internal self-sabotage, reaches an absolute fever pitch right as the final pieces of a project or a relationship or a mission are finally falling into place.
Exactly. So today's deep dive is rooted in some ancient history that, honestly, it feels incredibly modern. We are unpacking Nehemiah chapter 6.
A fascinating text.
It really is. And our source material today is this rich stack of audio transcripts, live chat logs, and meeting notes from a really deep, quiet time study. It was hosted by the icomm.CLASSROOM Teaching Ministry USA and led by their facilitator and chief learning officer, Indu.
Right, and Indu did an incredible job framing this. The mission of this deep dive is to essentially deconstruct the specific tactics used to stop a sacred project right at the buzzer.
Yeah, right at the threshold of completion. So if you are listening right now, I want you to think about this. What is the personal wall that you are currently building in your own life? Because this deep dive, it's going to equip you with an ancient blueprint to basically survive that final push.
So to set the stage for you, we should probably establish where we are in the timeline of this narrative.
Yeah, give us the context.
Okay, so most people know the basic premise. The Israelites have returned from exile, and Nehemiah is leading this massive effort to rebuild the destroyed walls of Jerusalem.
And it has not been easy.
Not at all. I mean, in the earlier chapters, like chapters 1 through 4, the builders faced just blatant external hostility, literally armies threatening physical violence.
Right. And then in chapter 5, The threat moved inward, right, with all that internal economic injustice that was fracturing their own community.
Exactly. But the wild thing is, they actually survived all of that.
Yeah, they made it through.
So by the time we get to chapter 6, the physical gaps in the wall are finally closed. The limestone is stacked. The structure is basically sound. It's really just lacking the wooden doors in the gates.
Okay, so they are right at the finish line.
Yes, and that milestone is the trigger.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, the physical intimidation failed, so the adversaries realize they have to pivot. They shift from this broad physical threat against the whole community to a hyper-personal, purely psychological assault targeting the mind of the leader.
I want to pause right here because I'm genuinely curious about the stakes. I mean, why does a finished wall matter so much to the surrounding nations?
It's a great question.
All right, like, it's just a municipal defense project. It's just a pile of limestone. Why do they care if the masonry is finished?
Well, because a finished wall shifts the entire power dynamic of the region. This wasn't just about stone and mortar, it was about covenant identity.
Covenant identity. Okay, unpack that.
So for decades, the destroyed wall was basically a public monument to the Israelites' defeat.
Oh, I see.
It was this visible humiliation that allowed the surrounding nations to essentially point and say, look at these people, their God is completely powerless to protect them.
Wow. So leaving it broken kept them spiritually subdued.
Exactly. Spiritually and politically subdued. It mocked God's name among the Gentiles.
Right. Like, where is their God? So the moment the wall is whole again, it signals that their God is back in the picture.
Precisely that. Finishing a wall restored God's honor. It meant they were no longer this defeated, defenseless group of refugees. They were a unified people with agency again.
Which is incredibly threatening to the people in power.
Absolutely. The surrounding adversaries, guys named Sanballat, Tobiah, and Geshem, they knew that a completed wall meant their era of just unchecked influence and exploitation over Jerusalem was completely over.
So they weren't fighting against a construction project.
No, they were fighting against a restoration of identity.
That reframes things completely. And, what makes the ICOM classroom study so compelling is how the community members actually mapped this ancient geopolitical tension right onto their own modern lives.
Yeah, the testimonies were so powerful.
They really were. They talked about their own personal walls. Like Bill, for example, he talked about his intentional cross-cultural relationship with his girlfriend, Angie. He said it proves that God is just full of amazing surprises.
Right, building a new kind of relational wall.
Exactly. And Injide shared her mission of bringing souls to Jesus, which was actually sparked by a literal dream.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And then there was Kibra. She described this deep, maternal wall of just praying through the night for her children's enduring faith, anchoring her trust in God's sovereignty, even when it feels humanly impossible.
Which is such a heavy, beautiful wall to build.
It is. And Dolores, who actually read the scripture for the session, she had this realization about her local neighborhood ministry. She said she realized it isn't about chasing massive, quick numbers to prove she's successful.
Right.
Her actual wall is just remaining faithful to loving her neighbors, creating that safe, enduring space.
And here's the thing. Just like Nehemiah, the moment you get close to establishing something that beautiful and enduring, that is when the psychological pushback begins.
Yeah, the resistance spikes.
Exactly. The enemies in Nehemiah's story deploy a series of highly calculated tactics. Basically, they want to breach his mind because they can no longer breach the stone.
Let's look at the first tactic they use, which Endu framed perfectly in the study. The text describes it as a deceptive invitation.
Yes, tactic number 1.
So the adversaries send a message to Nehemiah, basically saying, hey, come meet with us in one of the villages on the plain of Ono. They just want to talk.
Which sounds like completely standard diplomacy on the surface.
Right, but I have to push back here, though. If Nehemiah is so focused on building the wall, why is he even entertaining messages from his enemies?
That's a fair point.
I mean, if I am on a brutal deadline, I put my phone on Do Not Disturb, I lock my door, why didn't he just ignore the courier entirely?
Well, that is the insidious nature of this tactic. As a civil leader, Nehemiah can't just completely ghost the surrounding governors. If he does, he risks a major diplomatic incident or even a preemptive military strike.
Oh, so he has to acknowledge them.
He has to. But the trap is in the geography and the pacing.
Okay, geography. The plain of Ono.
Right. Ono is about 25 miles away, deep in enemy territory. If Nehemiah leaves the city to attend this quote-unquote summit, he abandons the work, he leaves his people vulnerable, and he likely walks straight into an assassination plot.
Oh, wow. Okay, so obviously he declines.
He does. But they don't take no for an answer.
No, the text says they sent the exact same invitation 4 times.
And that repetition, that is the true weapon here. A community member named Stephanie actually unmasked this brilliantly during the quiet time.
Yeah, I loved her point on this.
She pointed out that sending the same invitation 4 times, it isn't just persistence, it is the manufacturing of artificial urgency.
Artificial urgency.
Yes. The goal is just to induce a state of panic.
So how does artificial urgency actually work on the brain in a situation like this? I mean, structurally.
Well, it forces a physiological response. Think about it. When someone keeps pounding on your door, or your inbox is just blowing up with all these urgent markers from aggressive people, your brain's amygdala triggers a threat response.
You go into fight or flight.
Exactly. It bypasses your logical reasoning entirely and demands immediate action just to alleviate the stress. The adversaries wanted Nehemiah to feel so harassed, so rushed, that his judgment would cloud.
Right, causing him to make a fatal mistake just to make the incessant messaging stop.
Precisely.
We see that all the time today. People creating a false crisis just to force your hand. But Nehemiah refuses to leave his post. So the enemy escalates.
They do, and it gets nasty.
Yeah, the 5th time the messenger arrives, he isn't carrying a standard sealed scroll. The text says he is carrying an unsealed letter.
Which is just a devastating escalation.
Wait, okay. Why is the seal so important? Was the courier just careless? Or was this highly intentional?
Oh, it was entirely intentional. It essentially represents ancient viral shame.
Ancient viral shame.
Yeah. In that era, diplomatic correspondence was rolled up and sealed with wax or clay bearing a signet ring. That ensured only the recipient read it.
Right, private correspondence.
Exactly. By sending an open, unsealed letter, Sanballat ensured that every single person along the route, the courier, the guards at the gate, the citizens of Jerusalem, they could all read the contents before it ever reached Nehemiah.
Wow. And what did the letter actually say?
It contained a totally fabricated capital charge of treason. Yes. It alleged that Nehemiah was only building the wall so he could rebel against the king of Persia and crown himself king of Judah.
Which is an automatic death sentence. No trial, just execution, if the king of Persia believes it.
Exactly.
So by leaving it unsealed, they are essentially posting a defamatory accusation on a public social media timeline instead of sending a private DM.
That is a perfect analogy. The psychological goal here isn't just to scare Nehemiah, right? It's to infect his entire community with paranoia.
Because if the community is scared, they stop working.
Right. You saw this echoing in the live chat too. People like Emmanuel and Jubemi Williams were pointing out how these unsealed letters were designed to just trigger a spirit of fear.
Oh, like 2 Timothy 1:7.
Yes. John Obate brought that exact verse up in the chat. God hasn't given us a spirit of fear. But the adversaries want the builders to think, hey, if we keep helping Nehemiah, the Persian army is going to come slaughter all of us.
So they're trying to isolate the leader by turning his own support system against him.
Exactly. It is character assassination designed to halt progress by forcing Nehemiah to drop his trowel and spend all his time running a public relations defense campaign.
Wow. But he doesn't take the bait.
He doesn't.
Which forces the enemy to try something even darker. They move away from external threats and they start hiring insiders.
This is where it gets really chilling.
Yeah. They compromise a man named Shemaiah who appears to be a prophet.
And this is where the warfare becomes deeply spiritual and just incredibly disorienting. Shemaiah comes to Nehemiah sounding like this trusted, protective ally.
Right, like he's looking out for him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He claims to have this prophetic warning that assassins are coming for Nehemiah that very night.
Oh, wow.
So his advice is, hey, let's go hide inside the sanctuary of the temple and lock the doors so you don't get murdered.
Again, on the surface, this sounds like highly practical, protective advice. Go to the church, lock the doors, stay safe. But there is a massive trapdoor hidden in this council.
Yeah, the catastrophic one. To understand the trap, you really have to remember who Nehemiah is.
Right, he's a civil governor.
Exactly. He is a civil governor, formerly a cupbearer to the Persian king. He is a layperson. He is not a Levite priest.
Okay, I see where this is going.
Yeah. According to Jewish law, for a non-Levite to enter the inner sanctuary of the temple was a grievous sin. It was a complete desecration.
Ah, so if Nehemiah lets his self-preservation override his obedience to God's law, he ruins himself.
Exactly the point. If he had run into that temple to save his own skin, he would have publicly discredited his spiritual integrity.
He would have broadcasted to the entire city that he feared assassins more than he revered God.
Yes. He would have survived the night, sure, but he would have lost all moral authority to lead the people. The enemy used the guise of spiritual counsel to try and force a compromise of character.
Which brings up the most emotionally taxing part of this entire ordeal. As if hired prophets aren't enough, we learn that the nobles, like the aristocrats of Judah, are heavily compromised.
This part is so tough.
It is. Community members Frank Onoa and Tundi really highlighted this, noting the sheer exhaustion of internal betrayal.
Yeah, the nobles had formed all these marriage and business alliances with Tobiah, who was one of the primary adversaries.
Right.
And because of these financial ties, they were constantly exchanging letters with the enemy.
How does a leader even function in that environment? I mean, you are sitting in strategy meetings with your top officials, knowing they are leaking intelligence.
It's completely destabilizing.
The text says these nobles would sit with Nehemiah, constantly praise Tobiah to try and soften Nehemiah's resolve, and then they'd report everything Nehemiah said right back to the enemy camp.
And Frank Ona accurately identified this as ancient gaslighting.
Gaslighting is the absolute perfect term for it.
It really is. Internal betrayal destabilizes a leader's brain in a way external threats just cannot.
Right, because when an enemy army threatens you, your community bands together.
Exactly. But when the people inside your circle are manipulating the truth, telling you that your enemy is actually a great guy, or implying that you are being too rigid, trying to force you to compromise, it creates massive cognitive dissonance.
It makes you question your own sanity.
Yes, your own sanity and your own convictions. It takes immense spiritual fortitude to withstand that level of internal friction without just becoming deeply cynical or quitting from sheer decision fatigue.
So the obvious question is, how does his brain not just break under the weight of this? You have artificial urgency, viral shame, death threats, spiritual manipulation, and internal gaslighting all hitting him at the exact same time.
It's a lot.
It's overwhelming. So what is his counteroffensive?
His response is basically a masterclass in emotional regulation and spiritual discipline.
What does he do?
Well, he doesn't call a press conference. He doesn't hire lawyers to debate the treason charges. He doesn't get into the mud with them.
Okay.
He sends a simple message back regarding the unsealed letter, saying, essentially nothing like what you are saying is happening. You are just making it up in your own head.
Just totally calls them out.
Right. He boldly debunks the lie, and then he prays.
And it is not some long, eloquent theological prayer either. It is exactly 5 words in English.
Just 5 words, Nehemiah 6, verse 9. But now, strengthen my hands.
But now, strengthen my hands. It's almost like a mid-sentence pivot in his own mind. Like, they are lying, but now strengthen my hands.
Yeah, that short prayer, it reveals the true nature of courage. Because courage for Nehemiah wasn't the magical absence of fear.
Right.
It was his active, immediate dependence on God, right in the center of the terror. And notice what he doesn't pray for.
What do you mean?
Well, he doesn't ask God to strike down his enemies. He doesn't ask for the timeline to be magically shortened. He simply asks for the physical and spiritual endurance to just keep holding the trowel.
Wow. And Indu and Kunle detailed this so well in the study. The icomm.CLASSROOM community distilled this discipline down to this brilliant phrase. They called it 10,000 small refusals to come down.
10,000 small refusals. I love that.
It's so true, though. Spiritual fortitude isn't forged in one massive cinematic moment of heroism. It is built in 10,000 small, boring, exhausting moments where you are pressured to compromise and you just say, no, I am doing great work and I cannot come down.
You literally give the exact same answer every single time.
But I want to pivot to the practical application for the listener here.
Sure.
How do you actually know which voice is which? Because a community member named Kunle brought up a really critical point, referencing 2 Corinthians 11:14.
Right, the angel of light.
Exactly. He noted that Satan disguises himself as an angel of light. He repackages lies to look like divine direction.
Along with Paul Kircher, who talked about character under pressure.
Yeah. So if you are exhausted and someone gives you advice that sounds really safe and spiritual, like Shemaiah telling Nehemiah to hide in the temple, how do you discern if it's God's protection or the enemy's trap?
That is probably the most difficult challenge of the finish line. And a community member named Kibra Kircher offered one of the most profound analogies to answer this during the study.
Oh, this analogy blew my mind. Walk us through it.
So Kibra compared discerning God's voice to a mother's profound attunement to her newborn child.
Okay.
She explained that when you are preparing for your first child, you read all the books, you gather all the data.
Mm-hmm.
But when the baby actually arrives, this deep, primal relationship forms.
Right, it shifts from theory to reality.
Exactly. And very quickly, the mother doesn't need a textbook to understand the baby's cries. She hears one specific tone and knows instantly, oh, he's hungry.
Right.
Another slight variation in the cry, and she knows he needs a diaper change or he's overtired. She knows the microscopic nuances of those sounds because that relationship means absolutely everything to her.
It's an intimacy that completely bypasses intellect.
Exactly. And Kibra connected this maternal attunement to our relationship with God. She used this really great funny analogy about desserts.
Oh yeah, the dessert analogy.
She said nobody can convince her that desserts aren't tasty because she has personally experienced them. And the scripture says, taste and see that the Lord is good. When you cultivate an intimate, desperate, daily relationship with God, you develop a holy reverence that just completely eclipses the fear of man.
So you just know.
Yeah. When you know his voice, that intimately, a hired prophet can walk in sounding perfectly spiritual, but your spirit instantly flags the counterfeit. You just know the cry.
Because you know the character of the one speaking.
Exactly.
Another community member, Christian Chen, added an incredible layer to this in the chat. He provided what I think is the ultimate filter for navigating this kind of mental warfare.
It's such a good filter.
He said you must evaluate all counsel, all thoughts, and all fears by one single test. Does this move me toward or away from obedience?
That is the bedrock metric right there.
Right. Christian pointed to 2 Corinthians 10, verses 4 and 5, reminding the community that we have to actively tear down strongholds and take captive every thought that manufactures fear or distracts from God's larger plan.
Yeah. If a thought is inducing panic, or creating artificial urgency, or pushing you to compromise your integrity just to save your reputation, it is not from God.
You take it captive and you stay on the wall.
And that relentless focus, that absolute refusal to be baited into the mud, it leads to the triumphant climax of this historical record.
Yeah, the payoff.
Because despite the gaslighting and the unsealed viral letters, the death threats, the hired prophets, the internal spies, the wall was completed on the 25th day of the month of Elul.
Which means the entire project took exactly 52 days.
52 days.
That is wild.
To organize a traumatized workforce, clear decades of rubble, and rebuild massive stone fortifications while standing guard against a military invasion. 52 days is a staggering, almost impossible logistical achievement.
And what is the psychological fallout for the enemies? I mean, what happens to Sanballat and Tobiah when they wake up and see that the gates are finally hung?
Well, the text says that when all the surrounding nations saw the completed wall, they lost their self-confidence.
Wow.
They were deeply demoralized because they were forced to acknowledge a very humbling, undeniable truth. This work had been accomplished with the help of God.
The completed wall preaches the sermon without anyone having to say a single word.
Right.
The limestone did all the talking.
To build on that, Stephanie made a brilliant theological connection here, tying Nehemiah's flint-like resolve directly to the new covenant.
I remember this. How did she frame it?
She noted that Nehemiah refusing to leave his post perfectly foreshadows Jesus Christ.
Oh, right.
Because when people tried to scare Jesus by telling him that Herod wanted to kill him, Jesus didn't run. He didn't hide in a temple. He essentially said, go tell that fox that I will keep driving out demons and healing people today and tomorrow, and on the third day I will reach my goal.
Go tell that fox. That is incredible resolve.
Christ finished his divine mission despite mortal threats, fully aware of the cross, just as Nehemiah finished the wall.
So we turn this back to you, the listener. You are on your wall right now. You are exhausted. The enemy is sending that 5th unsealed letter. The insiders are whispering, and the pressure to just come down and compromise is immense.
That feels heavy.
It does. But what is the testimony God is writing through your refusal to stop building? Who is watching your completion, and what will they see when that final stone is laid?
I want to leave you with one final thought to mull over as you get back to work.
Okay, lay it on us.
We have spent this entire time analyzing the 52 days of building under intense psychological fire, but consider the implications of day 53.
Day 53. What happens then?
Well, the moment that final stone is mortared into place, the identity of the person holding the trowel has to fundamentally change.
Oh, wow. I see what you mean.
You spend so long in a defensive crouch, right? Trowel in one hand, sword in the other, fighting just to finish the structure. Your nervous system literally becomes wired for conflict and crisis.
You're just constantly braced for impact.
Exactly. But once the wall is done, you are no longer a builder. You are an inhabitant.
That is a massive paradigm shift.
It really is. You have to actively put the sword down and learn how to actually live in the peace, the safety, and the promise that you just fought so incredibly hard to construct.
Because if you don't...
If you don't, you will just find new enemies to fight inside the city.
Wow.
So the real question is, when your wall is finally finished, will you know how to stop fighting and start living?
From builder to inhabitant, the challenge of day 53, that is definitely something to sit with. And as Abiola Scott prayed at the close of this study, may God give us the grace to finish the work. Until then, keep your hands on the trowel, ignore the artificial urgency, and just keep building. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive.
When the enemy says, come down, we will not come down. Come down. We will not come down. Come down. We will not come down. Come down. Oh, yeah. Brick by brick, prayer by prayer, faith by faith. God is there, step by step, day by day. We will not turn away. No fear, no retreat, no turning back, no turning back. Our hands may be tired, but our faith is alive. There's a wall inside my heart, a work of grace you chose to start. Every weakness, every scar, you're transforming who we are. Maybe my wall is my family. Maybe it's faith in uncertainty. Maybe it's learning how to love. Maybe it's trusting you enough. I don't need to see the whole design. I only need to trust you one more time. Jesus kept his place called Jerusalem, though the cross was waiting there. Cracks could never turn him backward, because the Father's will was clear. Go tell that fox I will finish what I came to do. And if my Savior finished his mission, then I will finish mine with you. At the finish line. By the grace of God, we're gonna be alright. Though the enemy says, come down, we will never come down. At the finish line. What he started, he will bring to life. No fear can steal our testimony. God will finish what he started in me. He will finish. He will finish what he started. He will finish. When the wall is finally standing, when the gates are finally strong, when the shame has been replaced, when the night has turned to dawn, we will look back and say, it was not by our strength, it was not by our wisdom, it was not because we never faced opposition. It was because God was with us. We kept